Controversial far-right Republican nominee for governor in North Carolina. As reported just moments ago by CNN, he referred to himself as a, quote, black Nazi, expressed support for reinstating slavery on a pornography website, on the website's message board. Yeah, you heard that right. He said he's a black Nazi, and he expressed support for reinstating slavery on a pornographic website's message board. And there's more. Despite a recent history of anti-transgender rhetoric, CNN is reporting that Robinson said that he enjoyed watching transgender porn, a review of archived messages found in which he also referred to himself as, quote, as a, quote, perv. We're going to dig into this breaking story that could have some major implications for the presidential race. There's also another story that's very important that we need to cover this hour. Protests are currently sweeping all across New York City. And it's interesting because this is after the NYPD fired at a suspected subway fare evader in a busy subway station, hitting a bystander in the head. We have so much to dig into, and I'm really pleased to be joined by a brilliant guest who I've interviewed before, Dr. Chenjerai Kumanyika. Thank you so much for joining us. He is a professor at NYU School of Journalism. He's also an executive producer and host of a brand new crooked media podcast called Empire City that examines the history of the NYPD. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Happy to be here. Excited to be here.
Two big, important stories, and it's good to see you again.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing. Right off the bat, I just want to play. This is video. I told you about Mark Robinson. This is Mark Robinson. This is what he posted on Twitter. He did it about an hour ago, okay? Just about 30 minutes or so before this CNN investigative report was released. I'm going to tell you about what the report says. You're going to hear much more from him and from President Trump, what he has to do with this, or the former President Trump. But here's Mark Robinson addressing the report before it was even released. Watch this.
Hey guys, Lieutenant Governor Robinson and your Republican nominee for governor as well, of course. Well, guys, the news media is at it again. My opponent is at it again. You all have seen the half-truths and outright lies of Josh Stein on these ads over and over again. And now a story leaked by him to CNN is appearing now. Let me reassure you, the things that you will see in that story, those are not the words of Mark Robinson. You know my words, you know my character, and you know that I have been completely transparent in this race and before. Folks, this race right now, our opponents are desperate to shift the focus here from the substantive issues and focus on what you are concerned with to salacious tabloid trash. We cannot allow that to happen. And folks, we've seen this type of stuff in the past as well. Clarence Thomas famously once said he was the victim of a high-tech lynching. Well, it looks like Mark Robinson is too, by a man who refuses to stand on stage and debate me about the real issues that face you. Instead, they want to focus on salacious tabloid lies. We're not going to let them do that. We are staying in this race. We are in it to win it. And we know that with your help, we will. God bless you. And we will see you where? On the campaign trail.
I mean, there's so much more to read, right? I don't think that is going to do it. But before I get to the CNN reporting, because there's so many more salacious details that I want to give to you, but I want to just get Dr. Kumanyika. What's your initial reaction? It looks like a hostage video to me.
Right. I mean, it's absurd. I mean, what he's talking about, he tries to invoke this Clarence Thomas language where suddenly we're going to see him as a victim. But, I mean, what's clearly the case is that this is actually in the tradition of what Mark Robinson has done for a long time in North Carolina. There's all kinds of history of him making outrageous claims about abortion, anti-queer, transphobic comments. And so, but I got to say, nothing about this is funny, but when I first saw it, it's just so wild. I didn't know what to think.
So let me give our viewers some context, all right? The comments, which Robinson denies making, predate his entry into politics and current stint as North Carolina's lieutenant governor. They were made under a username that CNN was able to identify as Robinson by matching a litany of biographical details and a shared email address between the two. Many of Robinson's comments were gratuitously sexual and lewd in nature. They were made between 2008 and 2012 on Nude Africa. That is a pornographic website that includes a message board. Robinson listed his full name on his profile for Nude Africa, as well as an email address he used in numerous websites across the internet for decades. This reporting is just a small portion of Robinson's comments on the website, given their graphic nature. CNN first reached out to Robinson, the Robinson campaign, on Tuesday for comment. It took his campaign 2 days to respond and to issue a denial on this. During an interview with CNN today, Robinson repeatedly said that the issues that faced North Carolinians were more important than what he called tabloid trash, and he steered the conversation toward attacking his opponent in the race, Democrat Josh Stein, the state's attorney general. One more quote. "We're not getting out of this race. There are people who are counting on us to win this race," Robinson said. So much to talk about here. Okay. I just want to play, this is a mashup of all the times that Donald Trump has praised Mark Robinson. Check it out.
Been an unbelievable Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. This is Martin Luther King on steroids. Okay, now I told that to Mark. I said, "I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King times 2. Mark Robinson. Absolutely. He's doing good. He's got his own race up. He's fantastic. Thanks also to one of the great stars of the party, one of the great stars in politics, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. One of the strongest and bravest new voices in the Republican Party. He's been a great supporter of mine, and I'm a great supporter of his. Your incredible Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. Mark, stand up, Mark. Good job. Thank you. Thank you. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson of North Carolina and his wife, Mrs. Robinson. What a job you're doing. He's the hottest guy in politics. You're a very popular guy, Mark. And somebody that really took this country by storm, not just the state, but took the country by storm. Mark Robinson, he's out there, he's fighting. He's fighting. He's a great one. Thanks, Mark. Good luck, Mark. He'll win. Gotta win. He's gotta win. Gotta win. He's a good man.
Let me just say this. I got to read one thing before I bring you in. He said, "We're not getting out of this race. There are people who are counting on us to win the race." His insistence comes as many Republicans in the state have called on him to drop out. Now, reportedly, the Trump campaign has said Robinson is banned from appearing alongside former President Trump and North Carolina campaign events. Okay, so here's my question to you. Let me just tell you that what's his name, the famed statistician or the pollster, just moved North Carolina from, I think it was D to Larry Sabato just announced moments ago that he is moving North Carolina, the governor's race, from leaning D to very likely D. Do you think this could cause Donald Trump to lose North Carolina? If he loses North Carolina, he's in trouble.
I mean, North Carolina is clearly probably one of the key 3 swing states that's going to, or states that's going to decide this election. And I wish I could say that we're in a time when something as outrageous as this would be a decider, but I don't know. We're in this era where all kinds of things have come out about the presidential candidate, Donald Trump, and we still see that conservatives seem to be willing to attach themselves to this, even though in the state they're calling for him to resign.
Yeah, it's interesting. And he says he's not going to step down. You heard Donald Trump in that video saying he's Dr. King. As a matter of fact, I think he's better than Dr. King, or he's Dr. King on steroids. He would have become North Carolina's first black governor if elected. Also, he repeatedly maligned civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., attacking him in such intense terms that a user accused him of being a white supremacist. How is that going to go over in North Carolina?
Well, I mean, according to these comments on, Nude Africa,
Yeah.
he calls himself a black Nazi.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He said, "Get the effing commie bastard off the National Mall." Robinson, who wrote about the dedication of the memorial to King in Washington, D.C., but by then President Barack Obama. "Get the effing commie bastard off the National Mall." And then he went on to say, "I am not in the KKK. They don't let blacks join. If I was in the KKK, I would have called him Martin Lucifer Coon," Robinson said. In the pornographic forums, Robinson revealed his unvarnished thoughts on issues such as race, gender, and abortion. Writing in a forum discussing black Republicans in October of 2010, Robinson stated, unprovoked, "I am a black Nazi." That same month, Robinson wrote in another post that he supported the return of slavery. And now I'm quoting here, okay? Pay attention. "Slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring slavery back. I would certainly buy a few," he wrote. This is a man that Donald Trump is praising?
We just saw Donald Trump has firmly connected himself to this person. He's endorsed him, and Robinson might try to distance himself from these comments, but the problem is that we can see in his public record things that align with this way of thinking.
There's more. In March of 2012, Robinson wrote that he preferred the former leader of Nazi Germany, Adolf Hitler, over the leadership in Washington during the administration of Barack Obama. "I'd take Hitler over any of the shit that's in Washington right now," he wrote. Robinson's comments on Nude Africa often frequently contained derogatory and racial slurs directed at black, Jewish, and Muslim people. This guy's something else. In a series of 7 posts in October of 2011, Robinson disparaged Martin Luther King in such intense terms, calling him a commie bastard, who worse than a maggot, a hoe effing phony, and a huckster, that a user in the thread accused him of being in the KKK. Robinson responded by directing a slur at King. In October of 2010, Robinson used the anti-Semitic slur "heeb" when discussing how he liked the show Good Times, developed by Norman Lear, saying the show itself was a bunch of Heeb-written liberal bullshit. While discussing the Taliban, he referred to Muslims as little rag-headed bastards and said that if Muslims took over, liberals would be the first ones to be beheaded. Robinson also used homophobic slurs frequently, calling other users fags. Now, let me just say this. We have heard Dr. Kumanyika, Donald Trump in the last couple of days saying, the Democrats are the ones who are causing these people to want to assassinate me. Now, listen, I'm not condoning any sort of violence against the former president or against Donald Trump. And he said that the Democrats should stop saying that he was a threat to democracy because they're putting him in the metaphorical bullseye, right?
That's right.
Yet he supports a man like this, whose history is very public, And he's complaining that Democrats' rhetoric, that rhetoric is making him unsafe?
Right. How can this guy, how can Republicans claim to be standing against political violence when I believe it was Mark Robinson who said some people need to be killed, some people need killing, was a comment I believe he made in the church one time. Later, his party tried to clarify this and say that, he was referring to Nazis, but then you have him here saying anti-Semitic comments. So the whole thing really, I think, is something that voters have to pay attention to. And I also wonder, are these people who are saying that they're Christian? I mean, far be it from me to wade too deep into people's religion, but for people who are saying that Christianity is important to them, I don't know. This just seems striking.
Yeah. Wait, there's more. This is, I've been reading some of the crazy stuff that he has said over time, right? I just want to play now him in his own words of some of the crazy lunatic stuff that he has said. Here it is.
But two genders, ain't nothing but men and women.
He says God called on men to lead, not women.
Called to be led by men. When it was time to face down Goliath, sent David, not DeVita, David.
There's no reason anybody anywhere in America should be telling any child about transgenderism, homosexuality, any of that filth. And yes, I called it filth.
We could pass a bill saying you can't have an abortion in North Carolina for any reason.
He says the civil rights movement in the 1960s was, quote, crap, and that Martin Luther King was a communist.
Robinson posted the movie Black Panther was, quote, created by an agnostic Jew to pull the shekels out of your Sforza pockets, using the Yiddish words for money and black.
He referred to the victims of the Parkland school shooting as spoiled little bastards.
He says the moon landing in 1969 may have been fake. He also says there is a secret ruling cabal that is part reptile.
And said that Beyonce is satanic.
Listen, we're sitting here. This is a brother. But I mean, he's black. Let's put it that way. He's black.
There you go. Yeah. Not the same thing.
Okay. Look, maybe it's not mutually exclusive. Is he? I hate to call people crazy. Is he crazy, or does he believe that this is going to garner him some political capital in order to gain power?
I would probably lean toward the latter. I think that there's a very cynical way that, conservatives have learned to appeal to some of people's worst instincts, to appeal to disinformation. But, as a black man, what struck me is the rights that you and I enjoy, the rights that he enjoys, were all earned by the civil rights movement. And for him to be talking that way, it's just, I think that this is important because, listen, the Conservative Party has been reaching out to black voters, trying to appeal to black voters, and I think it's important that you bring in these receipts so folks can see what's really going on.
Thank you for your contribution to independent media, Rosetta Jenkins. Rosetta says, that Mark Robinson is certified crazy, self-loathing, narcissistic, hateful, and antichrist sociopath. All skin folks ain't kinfolk. Where's the lie?
I don't see. Yeah, she got it.
Yeah. He won 64% of the vote. Ooh. He won 64% of the vote, according to Helen P. He is insane for real, says Brandy Wilson. What do you guys think? Is he definitely crazy? He's down in the polling, though, 49 to 38. He is still getting support, or has still gotten support from the Trump folks. Now, from Donald Trump. I have not seen Donald Trump denouncing him. I want to see if there's going to be a denunciation from Donald Trump and the Trump people. I wonder if that's going to happen. Thank you, Beth Baer, for supporting independent media.
After all that breathless praise.
After all that breathless praise and bringing down the temperature, and the Democrats are provoking people to try to assassinate me. Is he going to apologize and say this is the kind of thing that we don't want in this country, that we don't want in the Republican Party? Is he going to say that he's dangerous, that he should not be in charge of any government or anything in North Carolina? Or is he worried that he's going to lose North Carolina And he's going to do what's politically expedient and just ignore it. What do you think?
Donald Trump has a history of doubling down and also trying to find something to distract from what's actually going on. So, that's kind of what I think it might go. But, this stuff is, I mean, the fact that other Republican leaders are calling for Robinson to step down now, that's telling. It might be a bottom-up thing.
Yeah. Damon A. says, every single day it's something new and it's always bad. Make him go away for good. Look, I'm just telling you it's true. Trump is never going to apologize for anything, says Aurora 42. People are so ignorant. It went away. Thank you, Quinty J. I can't say for life for the donation. So here's the thing. Even if he dropped out tonight, he says he's not, his name will be on the ballot. Is it too late, you think?
I mean, I don't know. The feeling I'm getting is that people have had enough, and maybe they're starting to see through, especially when you have, folks bringing the real facts about what's going on, creating the context. I don't know. I think folks, he might be on the ballot, but it might just be a lonely, empty box without a check on there.
We have a survey up in the comments, and it says, will Trump denounce Mark Robinson as self-proclaimed black Nazi? Yes, no, or I'm not sure. So please vote on that. A lot of you have voted. But come on, Lemonhead family, tell me how you feel about this, because I can't believe this. And I cannot believe that no one after all this has happened, this report is out, no one from the Trump campaign has had anything to say about this. Because imagine if it was the Vice President Kamala Harris, or imagine if it was the President Joe Biden. Imagine what Republicans at Fox News and all the OAN, I don't know if that's still on the air, or the Newsmaxes of the world, they would be losing their minds. Is the President Biden going to denounce it? This is what the Democratic Party is like. Is Vice President Kamala Harris going to denounce this guy? See what the Democrats are like? I wonder what they're saying about this one. I wonder if over on the 5, and maybe they are because I'm not watching it, if they're going to be talking crap about this guy, are they going to say he's in North Carolina and I don't know, or making excuses for him?
Well, what we've seen is they make stories go viral that according to JD Vance, they had to create, right? They had to create these false stories. For example, the stories about Haitians in Springfield to create the focus. Here's a story that's based in actual evidence, right? That's been verified, and there's no comment.
There's no comment. One more thing, and there's more. And there's more. This is Andrew Kaczynski over at the K-File speaking with Mr. Robinson.
How do you explain all of the matching details on this profile? The profile on Nude Africa lists your full name as Mark Robinson. The email listed on the account is an email that you have used elsewhere on the internet, including with your photo. You have used that name, Mini Soldier, on multiple social media accounts, including Twitter, Pinterest, Black Planet, and YouTube. How can you deny, with all of these matching details, that this is you?
Look, I'm not going to get into the minutia of how somebody manufactured these salacious tabloid lies, but I can tell you this. There's been over $1 million spent on me through AI by a billionaire son who's bound and determined to destroy me. The things that people can do with the internet now is incredible. But what I can tell you is this. Again, these are not my words. This is simply tabloid trash being used as a distraction from the substantive issues that the people of this state are facing. We have addressed it. We have said it's not true. And we wish we could move on and get busy with the business of the people of the state.
So that was the folks over at CNN, the K-File. Let me tell a couple of things, okay? When I said what would happen, what would they be saying for Democrats? It said, Susanna Tupper, and I think makes a very good point. The difference is that Democrats wouldn't have to be prodded to denounce something like this. The GOP will just say, I haven't followed the story and never comment about it again. And MSN, mainstream media, lets them. Susanna, you ain't never lied, is what my mom would say. You ain't never lied. That's exactly what would happen. I don't want to comment. I don't really know that much about the story. They would disown him. I don't know him that much. I don't know him that well.
Right.
Right?
All of that.
And
right.
then they would just shut up and hope that it got out of the news cycle. So here's the thing that I would like to know. Do you remember Herschel Walker?
Oh, yeah.
Trump supported him, never denounced him after all of these things. Oh, someone is talking about Herschel Walker in the comments. Remember how Herschel Walker lost in Georgia? Both Trump and Robinson will lose, says Brunny Jacob. Is this another Herschel Walker situation that's happening? Or are they going to say this is all created by the Democrats at the last minute in the 11th hour to knock our person out? And then it will be another Herschel Walker situation that will cause them to lose North Carolina like Herschel Walker and Trump did Georgia.
Well, you would think when you see comments like this that, this is stuff that folks would want to distance themselves from. And clearly some folks do. But there's also another thing going on right now in politics where some people like some of this. Maybe they see it as evidence of somebody who's, spicy and willing to be, like not politically correct. I mean, so I think some of these people read these things in different ways that you can't always predict. So I'm like, I would like to think that folks will distance themselves, but I think we've seen folks actually lean in to some of the most disgusting, hateful, and just wild stuff.
There are Robinson sound bites all over the internet. If you guys can find some, I would love to play them. I got one more question. He said, now again, a convenient excuse, Doctor. He says that it's AI. So he's going to pretend it's not him and that this was all made up and that it's computer generated.
Right.
Don't believe your lying eyes.
Right. I mean, that's ridiculous, but this is the world we got to get ready from. With deep fakes, with all these other things, people are going to use this to try to deny things, even when we have done the fact checking, even when we've done the sort of, forensics on it to say, like, no, this is you did this.
Yeah. Okay, so let me tell you something. Just in case you guys don't know, there was once upon a time this anchor named Don Lemon who used to work over at the CNN and used to work along with the folks over at the K-File and used to work along the folks over at the CNN Standards and Practices and Triads, who actually did the video for the Standards and Practices Triad. When people would come and employees wanted to know what they would do to get their stories on the air to make sure that it passed muster, the person that they would see giving them the video would be the Don Lemon. In order for CNN to put something on like this, it means they have done, or as we say in the vernacular, they had did, but they had done is the proper grammar. They have done their homework. And they are not going to put the reputation of a CNN on the line by putting something on the air that is not true. As you can see, they went through all of the measures and they checked and they ran cross-referenced this to that, and they're saying that this is him. He's been using this email for over a decade on these pornographic websites. What is it called? Nude Kenya? Nude Africa.
Yeah.
Nude Africa. And there's also a report. This is a different report. Let me get this one. There is also a report. Let me get my reports up here. From, let's see. Okay. There's also a report that says, I think it's the same thing. Email address belongs to registered to Ashley Madison.
Oh.
This is according to Politico. Okay? Now, over at the Politico, which is also a very, very reputable news agency, folks over at Politico, Natalie Allison writes, an email address belonging to North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson was registered on Ashley Madison, a website designed for married people seeking affairs. Republican Party, MAGA, judgmental, so many issues. You shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. Evangelicals, the moral majority, family values. An advisor to Robinson, granted anonymity to speak freely, confirmed to Politico that the email address in question belongs to Robinson. The discovery of Robinson's personal email address on Ashley Madison came as Republicans in North Carolina on Thursday cringed after CNN uncovered old posts purportedly made by Robinson on online pornographic forums, and as his chances of winning the governor's race appear increasingly grim, Robinson recorded an interview with CNN set to air on Thursday evening denying various allegations against him of other online activities, according to a person with knowledge of the situation. Now, all of these people who are talking about, it's going against God for, to be gay and homosexuality and you're cheating on your wife and you're doing these. I always say, thou doth protest too much. The people, the main people who are so holy roller and holier than thou are the ones with the secrets.
Well, we've seen it again and again in the Republican Party, just scandals where these things come out. And again, people have, human flaws, or they have whatever their habits or however they get down. But the problem is you the main ones out here trying to, judge other people.
Get down the way you want to get down.
Right.
But don't judge other people.
Exactly.
As long as it's two consenting adults.
That's it.
That's your business.
Right.
So why are you in other folks' business?
Exactly.
When you're doing freaky stuff on the side. I'm just saying. Okay, we're going to get back to facts, Don, says Demetrius Cephas. Thank you very much. Yeah, the one with the secret, says Brenda Young. You're right about that. Allison Williams says 100%. Exactly, Don, says Maliza. The people who are the holier than thou and always judging other people, and especially those that are the most homophobic. I'm just saying, there's a reason that Grindr is always busy and is knocked offline, because it's so busy during the Republican National Convention and other Republican gatherings. Trust. Okay, here we go. Breaking news. This just in. Fox News responding to the story. Here it is.
It's a really interesting state in there, North Carolina, which is a big target for the Democrats. And we just found out an hour ago that the lieutenant governor there, Mark Robinson, who's running for governor,
Never heard of him.
who Donald Trump called Martin Luther King on steroids, posted on a porn forum called Nude Africa that he's a black Nazi, expressed support for reinstating slavery, and detailed his sexual arousal from memories of peeping on women in public gyms, and he still fantasizes about it. He also has an Ashley Madison account.
How dare you kink shame?
Sure.
That's a great reaction. So Josh Stein was likely to win that race anyway. If they get Mark Robinson to drop out, his name is still on the ballot. But this makes North Carolina even more in play for Democrats. And this, again, is evidence of the type of candidates that Donald Trump thinks are good for the country. Martin Luther King on steroids, someone who says he's a black Nazi.
But he would obviously.
But what?
Let's take the obvious here.
Yeah.
Do you think Trump actually knew this guy was on porn sites?
My point is that Donald Trump likes anyone who likes him, and he doesn't bother to
That's
do the
called
work.
being human.
No, it's not. A lot of people like me who I don't like in return.
Like who?
Like,
I don't
Tell
want
us
to.
now.
I don't want to name names.
Go ahead. Let's start with Fox and Friends.
yeah. Poor Kill
All right,
Mead.
Jessica.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff.
I didn't interrupt. I just want to let that be known. Greg interrupted on my behalf.
The king shaming was
Okay,
kind of
well,
funny. And
I will be going to Nude Africa in the break to see if that's true.
The first thing he said was what? Never heard of him. Did you hear that? Never heard of him.
That's what he said.
That's what we said. Never heard of him. Then they make a joke out of it, and then they're like, oh, how dare you kink shame? And do you think he knew that he was on pornographic websites? Okay, that's not the thing. I mean, that is part of the thing. But what about all the other statements that he made publicly?
Right.
Donald Trump didn't know about that as he was calling him all of this? Come on. Man, come on. We told y'all. I'm telling y'all. We know. We know. Okay, so listen, I want to pivot right now and talk about this is another big story. It's a top story here. As I said at the top of the hour, there are thousands of protesters in New York City. They have taken to the streets to demand accountability after police fired at a suspected fare evader in a busy subway station, hitting a bystander in the head. The bystander's name is Gregory DePelch.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Remains in the hospital in critical condition and has undergone cranial surgery. That's according to U.S. media. Police said 2 officers shot at the suspected fare evader on Sunday after he refused to comply with orders, muttered threats, and drew a knife. A second bystander, another officer, and the suspect were also injured here. New York authorities have made reducing crime on the subway and buses a top priority following a series of violent attacks, robberies, and murders. A crackdown on fare evasion is part of that push, okay? So, But critics have questioned how the pursuit of a minor offender escalated into the use of lethal force in a crowded space. So my question to you, Doctor, is can you provide additional details about this horrific episode? And I know that you attended some of those protests. What's going on here?
That's right. I mean, I think that, first of all, I just want to say that this example, this particular case, encapsulates so many of the things that people have been complaining about with respect to the NYPD. First of all, we're talking about the pursuit of someone who did not pay a $2.90 fare. And that's important to point out because the NYPD is going to go through all kinds, they're going to call this guy knife wielding, they're going to do all kinds of things to distract you from the fact that the reason this all took place was because they were pursuing him about this fare. And then in the course of pursuing someone about a less than $3 fare, the NYPD shot 4 people, including a police officer. Right? I mean, and one of the people that they shot is probably going to have brain damage for the rest of his life. So, and additionally, the mayor, after this incident, went to the hospital to express his concern about the police officer, which, of course, it's a tragedy when anyone is shot, including a police officer. But what about the innocent bystanders that were shot by your NYPD? Then there's this whole thing that's unfolded around the knife and the evidence. So basically, they claimed that the reason they had to shoot was because the man was wielding a knife, and they showed pictures of the knife, right, in the immediate hours after to say this was the weapon. But then a few hours later, they said someone stole the weapon, and then now the story is it was the wrong weapon, what does it mean to say you had the wrong weapon?
You mean they have the wrong weapon from the evidence?
They have lost this knife.
That's what I was going to say. The guy, someone in the Sunnyside in the comments said, the guy pulled a knife, as if like, come on, what were they supposed to do? He pulled a knife on them.
Right. I mean, well, if you're prioritizing his life, there's no reason that 4 people have to be shot because one guy pulled a knife. I mean, I don't, but the other thing is they don't seem to have found the knife. At this point, they can't produce the knife. And so, but the real question is, how are 4 people shot because you were pursuing one person over fare evasion? Who is safer as a result of this?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you can put the sound up and just pot it down a little bit. These are some of the protests that have been happening. Because what is the subway fare now? $2, $2.90, $3,
something like that.
$2.93. Yeah. What do they do? Because they changed the subway, the turnstiles in many places so that you have the shield where you can't jump, right? You can't fare jump. Then what should police do? Should they just allow fare jumpers? Like what would you have them do?
Well,
prioritize.
Clearly we want our subways. Our subways are important for everybody to pursue. But I mean, one thing that people have pointed out is that Mayor Eric Adams has given the police so much overtime to work in those subways, where a lot of times officers are standing around playing Candy Crush and things like this in those subways. That the additional overtime, cutting that back would actually, you could cut into that budget and add more than you're losing from fare evasion. So, but what people are really basically saying is, really, in the end of the day, we should be finding ways to support low-income people who are trying to travel to work, trying to travel with their families. And this subway stop was in Brownsville, New York, at Sutter Ave Station. And people out there, they have a long history of racial discrimination in that neighborhood. And people were incensed because they were saying, you come into our neighborhoods. They were saying, you wouldn't do this in Chelsea. You wouldn't do this in some of these other neighborhoods, but yet you want to come in our neighborhood, shoot 4 people. And then I think the mother of the person who was the so-called fare evader, the alleged fare evader, he was shot, and they went to his mother's and just left a card, but did not tell her. She had to find out that her son has been shot by the NYPD on the news.
This is a very difficult story, obviously, especially with someone shot in the head randomly. It's going to have to live that for the rest of their lives for a fare jumper. Now, if they've been getting hammered for crime, right, in the city. Even though crime is down, they've been getting hammered for the homelessness problem.
That's right.
And I do see a lot of police officers though just standing around on their phones. And let me tell you, I respect what police officers do. I tell you, and I, as someone who likes to take the subway, I love the subway. You know why? It's fast.
Right.
You can sit in a car for an hour for something that would normally take you 10 to 15 minutes to get to on the subway. So I like it. I was talking to someone today who said, I can't believe you take the subway. Don't you get mobbed? I'm like, no, I don't carry myself like that. carry myself like I'm a New Yorker, no different than you. I take the subway and it's fine. I feel safe on the subway when I see those police officers. Do you think they need better training? Do you think they need to prioritize that like a fair jumper does not mean you run after them and fire your gun? Like, what are you saying should happen here? What do you think should happen here?
I think we have to get out of this idea that somehow police are the thing that deters things from happening, right? I mean, I would like to really see the evidence on that. Everything I've seen says that crime is down in the city. The subways are not dangerous. Like you said, you take the subways, all kinds of people. I'm on the subways all the time. It's packed. So New Yorkers take the subway all the time, but the police have a history. And you know, it's interesting. In my show, Empire City, which we'll talk about, I spoke with former Lieutenant Edwin Raymond. He gives away the game. He says, listen, police target the subways not because it makes anybody safer, but because it's an easy way for them to arrest vulnerable people and get their numbers and their quotas up.
Has it always been this way? Because I've lived in New York since the 90s, right? I went through, I arrived in New York City as a full citizen. I used to come and visit and house sit for my aunt in high school in the 80s and whatever. That was a whole different story. But in the 90s, I moved here and it was under Mayor Dinkins.
Right.
And then after Mayor Dinkins, Rudy Giuliani, who really cracked down, right? Remember, he had the broken windows sort of thing. And this appears to be what they're sort of going back to. Like, you have to deal with the small things in order to, you know, they believe it happens from the bottom up instead of the top down. Do you think that they're going back to those years? Has it always been that way with the New York City Police Department?
Well, you have to look at the data. I mean, broken windows policing has been debunked. It's been debunked as a way, you know, as a method. What it results in is people being stopped and frisked, particular neighborhoods being targeted, but it is not responsible for crime going down. And I just want to also say this, right? Like, when you talk critically about police officers, it can sound like you're saying, oh, I think each individual officer is evil. I don't think that. I think policing is a job that working class people can get, and I know a lot of folks put on that uniform because they want to help. But here's the problem. When you can't speak out about something that's wrong because you're upholding that blue wall of silence, and then the incident that happened is, here's the facts. These officers went into that subway stop and shot 4 people. That's the facts. If you can't speak out and speak on those facts, if you can't express outrage to those families who had people hurt, then you have to own that now. So it's not, I'm not just saying that just because you got the uniform on, there's a problem. The problem is that uniform wraps you in a culture where you can't even acknowledge wrongdoing and problems.
Andy Moore says, make better turnstiles. Those have been there since the early 2000s. Vin says, crime is down everywhere. You can jump in wherever you want to jump in, Doctor. Taxpayers will once again pick up the tab for this. Carter says, they can't find a knife. Tim K says, cops have a tough job, but don't lie. Let's see. They could have used discretion, says Damon A., and just let it go. I learned about that working in a prison. Another person says, I'm so glad, this is Stephanie Herring, I'm so glad that my husband has retired from the NYPD. Winston Saylor says, the cop feared for his life.
That's a, you know, as somebody who's working and been studying the history of the police, you know, that sort of reasoning that the cop feared for his life as a justification for taking other people's lives goes all the way back over 100 years, you know, and you know, this is like a problem, you know what I'm saying, that I think we have to look at.
Contribution said, Don Lemon, I didn't know that you are a legal immigrant. I'm finna Google. No, I said I moved to New York City. I am a full citizen. I'm not an immigrant. I moved to New York City from Louisiana in the early 90s. I'm not an immigrant. Is this the Upper East Side? Winston Sayer says, they're being sarcastic because they don't believe that would happen on the Upper East Side. Let's see. There are tons of comments of people who want to. Says, come on, Mayor Adams. Again, Winston. Yes, I live in New York.
I just got to jump in.
Go ahead.
When this happened, right, one of the first tweets I saw was from the former vice president of the FOP. I think current vice president of the FOP, and he said, anybody who doesn't think a war on cops is real, and he cited this incident as evidence of a war on cops. But the problem is, in this case, the officer was shot by another police officer. And where is the acknowledgement of that? So it's really deceptive. It's almost like, did he not know that the cop who got shot in this case got shot by another officer who also shot innocent people? And yet you're still trying to set up the NYPD as the victims instead of doing the right thing, which is, if they made a mistake here, own it. We shouldn't have done this. We made a mistake. We're sorry. We're sorry to the families. We're sorry to New Yorkers. Instead, they're doubling down as though they are the victim in this situation.
Can you please talk to me about your personal relationship with the NYPD and that of your family?
Well, one thing I found, it's funny, my father passed away back in the 90s, and I had never really seen a moving video because, I didn't live in the age of Instagram. He wasn't alive in the age of Instagram where we all have moving images of my father, and I wanted one. But I saw recently, as I was starting this project, an image of my father, a moving video of him. He was alive. It was back in 1964. And you know how it is when you see a video of a family member? I wanted to reach through the TV and hug him. Turns out it was surveillance footage shot by the NYPD. My father was the leader of the Bronx chapter of Congress of Racial Equality.
Wow.
And he and other core activists entered a police station and handcuffed themselves peacefully inside the station. And the NYPD was surveilling him. And that's the first moving video I saw was surveillance footage by the NYPD.
I want you to weigh in on this. This is from Jujubee711. Says, yeah, when Giuliani was sane, he was one of the best mayors, like Bloomberg. Not sure what happened to Giuliani. He went crazy. What do you think of that statement?
I think that Giuliani sort of became more what he was, but I think that there is that story that somehow Giuliani made New York safer. But you know what is funny? One time I was actually talking to someone about this for my show, and I asked him, what did Giuliani do so great? You know what he said? He cracked down on the squeegee guys. That was the big, success that Giuliani had to make the city safer. The squeegee guys who try to come and wipe your windshield for $1. And I think that goes to show you that, this is not really about making people safer.
I lived here when Giuliani was mayor. And there were some issues when it comes to policing and issues the way African Americans were treated. And hold on one second. Okay. The way some people in minority communities were treated, there was a lot of police brutality going on. And then from that, this was later. Bloomberg came. Now, quite honestly, I think Bloomberg was a good mayor. And no mayor is perfect, but I think Bloomberg was a good mayor. Also, someone who took the subway was Mayor Bloomberg, right? Who is a billionaire a number of times over. He takes a subway. And then, what was the guy after him? What's his name? I always forget his name. The tall guy who came between Eric Adams and
De Blasio?
De Blasio. Bill de Blasio came, and there were some issues. I think it was de Blasio. That's when Stop and Frisk was, right?
Yeah, Bloomberg too. Yeah.
And Bloomberg with Stop and Frisk. So I thought he was a good mayor. Stop and Frisk is what I'm talking about. Now, I got to tell you, when I lived in Harlem, and I know that there's research that shows that Stop and Frisk doesn't work, right? Right. And because of the discrimination part of it. I've talked to some of the ladies who had lived there for years, and they're like, I don't care, I don't mind Stop and Frisk because they're stopping them young boys or whatever. Did they know what they were talking about? Were they ignorant of the actual facts? Because they believed that Stop and Frisk made them safe because they would get the drugs and the guns out of those backpacks and off of people's persons.
Look at the data. Stop and Frisk has been debunked. It was not successful. What it resulted in was the targeting and surveillance of black and brown people. And by the way—
Deemed unconstitutional, says buried bits in the thing.
That's right. And by the way, Stop and Frisks of black and Latino folks are up under Mayor Eric Adams since 2022. I learned the story of a young man named Naeem Sofas. This is like you don't have to be perfect to not be Stop and Frisk, but this young man was an athlete on the honor roll, got Stop and Frisked by his friends, cop pulls up on him, shook him down, didn't find anything. And that happened under Mayor Eric Adams, and it's an example. And that's traumatizing, right? Here's the kind of person that we want to feel like they can live in New York, to be engaged. We want that person to vote and feel like there's hope in the system. And yet, your people are championing these policies which have been debunked. And so I understand that if you live in communities, right? It's real. If you live in listen, I've lived in Philadelphia for a long time. I was born in Harlem. I understand what it means to see the intra-community harm, but you got to really talk to the whole community and get the full diversity of opinion. At Sutter Ave at these protests, I talked to, The people there were like, we don't want the police in our neighborhood because you come here and targeted us. I talked to a young man.
But what do they do if a crime happens? What do they do?
Well, I mean, police, you can see I encourage you to look at the research to see what portion of crimes police even solve. Police aren't actually, I don't know if this comes as a newsflash, people, police aren't that good at preventing crime. Ask people in Uvalde what police present. There was 400 police officers there. Police show up after the crime, and they don't get, and police are also not involved in getting to the root of the policies, right? So they sort of, it's interesting because police as a constituency tend to be overwhelmingly conservative. So the policies that would actually address the roots of the problems in our communities, they're on the wrong side of that. And then they show up after the crimes have happened. Now, I'm not trying to say that we don't, there aren't people who want to help, but we need to be real. Let's talk about what happened at that Sutter Ave train stop.
Yeah.
Who's safer as a result of that?
Let me ask you though, when you say that, if somebody mugged you or robbed you, what would you do? Would you call 911, or if someone broke into your house, what would you do?
I personally would not. But I don't blame someone. If you feel unsafe and feel threatened, you have to do whatever you want to do. But that doesn't mean that we can't dream of something better where we don't have to have and work toward, not just dream. There are people working towards things that are better. The real question that I will pose back to you is, what can the family of that person who got shot by the NYPD on the train while just standing there, what can they do? The mayor is not really acknowledging them in a serious way. The police commissioner, Edward Caban, who just resigned, on his way out, made it harder to hold police accountable after burying cases. The previous commissioner, Keishant Sewell, threw out more cases than any previous police commissioner, right? Who can hold the institution accountable? If you're a New Yorker who says, listen, I've been mistreated by the police, where can you go?
Shirley Francis says, Francois, in the meantime, Trump is advocating for officers to receive full immunity and for more officers to be deployed on the streets.
That's right. And I think that's one reason why people need to get to, the voting booth and really try to have a real conversation about what safety means. We all know Trump wants to use police to defeat his political opponents, anyone who disagrees with him, right? Trump is not out here trying to keep our communities safe.
Yeah.
So I think people got to get to the polls on this.
Doctor, thank you. I appreciate you. This story is unfolding here in New York City. It is a very complicated story. Our hearts go out to the innocent person. And you made some very good points about in the meantime, we can imagine something better.
That's right.
Than a situation where someone is presented with is in the situation where he or she can't afford a $2.90 subway fare.
Exactly.
Right? And then also that for doing that someone has to lose their life for it, or someone has to be injured for it. It's crazy.
And I appreciate you bringing up these points about safety, because these are real conversations that we have to have in our community about what do we do. But what happened there cannot happen, and we need to listen to those folks. And by the way, to the family of the man who was shot in the head, they've called for their body cam footage. So we're going to be staying tuned to see what comes out.
Rosetta Jenkins, thank you for the generous contribution to independent media. Community policing, Rosetta says, is the only way. When it is used, the officers and community are safer as they are working together. So thank you for that. Thank you, everyone. Make sure, look, I talk about policing. I'm just telling you everything. In this book, I talk about policing as it relates to what's happening. So here's the book. It's called I Once Was Lost, My Search for God in America. Make sure you get it now. You can buy it at your local bookstore if you have one, or you can order it online. And again, I talk about policing. I talk about George Floyd. I talk about all kinds of things in here. The John Lewis Justice in Police. That's the Voter Rights Act.
That's
but
right.
The Justice in Policing Act. That's also that they want to get passed.
And we know you were there. You know what I'm saying? When I think of all those moments, you know what I'm saying? I think of you in the mix of it.
Someone said, "Is anybody going to be on the Oprah Kamala call tonight?" I will be there. I got an invitation to be part of the audience, so I will see you there tonight. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you, Lemonheads. Thank you, Lemon Nation. Thanks for helping us build a community. The engagement was great today. We got a lot of your comments in. We're going to see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. for our Hot Topics, where we're going to discuss what is going on with this Robinson character. Is he going to step down? Will Trump denounce him? Will conservative media denounce him, or will they just do what they just did on Fox? I don't know who he is, make a joke about kink shaming, and then wait for it to leave the news cycle? Are they, because they're worried about losing North Carolina? Let's see how they handle this. This will be a lesson, trust me, in political chicanery. Is that the right thing? Of tomfoolery in politics. They're working on it now, trust me. So let's see how they respond, okay? Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bye-bye.
Check out Empire City.
Empire City. Check out Empire City.